Hello everyone, TMMgamer here, and today I have the pleasure of bringing you some more FIFA 12 analysis because earlier this week I had a comment on my FIFA 12 tactical defending video asking me whether I bother to change the player work rates, the player positions on my formations that I use. And because, that's quite a detailed response, I decided to do a response in a video instead of a comment. So I'm going to quickly show you 3 formations that I've created and show you how I've changed the player work rates to make the formations behave how I want. Now the first one I want to show you is, I think it's this one. Let's make sure this is the right one. Yes, this is the right one. Now, as you can see, I've changed the player work rate here on most of the players. Let's start with the defence. Now, I like my fullbacks to be quite attacking. So, as you can see, if I click on the player work rate, I've got their attacking value set to default, which is high. So, they will get forward as often as possible when I have the ball. However, because they're fullbacks, and you also want them to tuck in and be defensive, I've gone for their defensive value as medium. Oops, sorry, I don't want to change this around too much. There we go. Because you want them to be attacking, you want them to get forward when you have the ball, but you also want them to tuck in and be tight when you don't. So if you have their work rate, their defensive work rate set to low, what you sometimes find is they just stay up the field and only slowly walk back, and that's not what you want at all. So you want to have them on medium so they get back fast and attack fast. Now, for the centre halves, there's absolutely no point in giving them attacking work rate. They are your last line of defence. You want them to be sitting in front of your goalkeeper. You do not want them to move. So I always have their attacking work rate set to low. However, because they are the most important defensive players on your team, you want them to be working hard at the back for you. So I always have their defensive work rate set to high. Now, when I move into midfield, because I'm playing a defensive-minded midfielder with basically everyone in front of him going attacking, I like to have their defensive work rate set to high and their attacking work rate set to low. So what you've got is you've got 2 solid centre defenders who aren't going to move. You've got a central defensive midfield playmaker who's John Obi Mikel in Chelsea, for argument's sake. He sits in front of the defence. He doesn't really go forward, but what normally happens is he sits in space, so he can sort of control your attacking play. He'll always be an option free for you, so he just sits back, sprays the passes, and that's nice and easy. Now for the wingers, I've actually done this slightly different because when I use Chelsea, I have Ramirez playing on the right wing, and Ramirez has the engine speciality. So if I click on him here and show you what engine is, this player can run for days, he works harder, he's basically a very high stamina player. Now whenever you have a high stamina player, you want to make the most out of him. So what I've done here, if I just click onto Ramirez, is show you that I've done high attacking and high defending both on the same guy. Now he has the engine ability, so he has such high stamina, he can really bomb up and down the field, and you want to make the most of your high stamina players. So I always have whatever player it might be with engine on high attacking and high defending. So the blue, if you weren't knowing, if you're not too sure, is high, yellow is medium, and red is low, because sometimes if you just leave it on the basic value, it will say default, and that can confuse you sometimes. So that's what I like to do with a very high stamina player. Now on the other side of the pitch, I've got Juan Mata. Now what I've done with Juan Mata is just keep both the attacking and defending as medium, because Mata is a sort of finesse player. He's not an out and out pacey winger like a Walcott. He's much more likely to come inside, drop into space, a bit more like David Silva than Theo Walcott or an Aaron Lennon. So what I like to do with these sorts of players is have their work rate so that they will go up the pitch but not too far. You want them to begin to cut inside and begin to just work around the midfield into the space. And I think this is the best way to do that. Because like I was saying, if you put in high attacking work rate, they get right up the field, get right into the corner. And that's what you want to do with someone like Aaron Lennon, a very, very pacey winger. You want them to have a high attacking work rate. But because it's a Juan Mata, someone who's a little bit more of a finesse player, I don't want him to be playing right on that line of defenders. I want him to drop back into a little bit more space so I can use his passing ability. And I think the default medium and medium is probably the best way to do that. But let's move forward a little bit. Frank Lampard, a fantastic attacking midfielder. You want him to be getting into the box late, supporting your attackers. But also, because you've got 2 quite attacking wingers either side of him in Mata and Ramirez, who will get forward, you want him to have some defensive role. So I put him on his attacking work rate high, because the reason why Frank Lampard's in the team is to score goals, so you want him to get up the pitch. But also, you want him to drop back sometimes when you're under a bit of pressure, so you keep the defensive work rate on medium, because if you do put it on high, he won't get forward into the positions you want him, but also, if you leave it on low, he's not going to get back enough, so you'll basically be playing with 3 strikers, and that is something you don't want to do in this formation. So medium's a good compromise. And then with my strikers, 99% of the time I put their attacking work rate high and their defensive work rate low. Unless it's a player who can run for days and days and days, like a Carlos Tevez, for example, there is absolutely no point in putting defensive work rate on your strikers. They are not going to get into any positions to help you defensively. Their entire job is to score you goals. And the great thing is, if you leave their defensive work rate low, they won't check back and track back, but what they will do is stay upfield and give you an out ball. So you don't want your entire team on ultra defensive mode, because what will happen is you'll get stuck in your own half. You always want that ball out to really help you get up the field. And when you've got someone like Didier Drogba, for example, you want him to be as far up the field as possible so he can bring the ball down and give you a launch pad for attack. So what I like to do always with my strikers is have them on low work rate for defensive work and high work rate for their attacking. So that's that formation done. Let's quickly exit without saving. And then there's 2 more I wanted to show you. The first one I wanted to show you is this one, because this is a slightly unusual formation I like to play. It's a hybrid 4-5-1, but what you see sometimes, you see the wingers pushed further upfield. But what I like to do in this one is have more of a centre forward and then 2 wingers behind him, so they begin to cut inside. And this is quite an interesting formation to play with if you haven't, but it does take a little bit of work to get set up right. So as you can see here, fullbacks set up exactly the same, but the midfield is where you begin to change slightly. So if I go to John Obi Mikel, you can see him here. He's the more defensive-minded midfielder. So just like before, I want him on high defensive work rate and low attacking work rate. Now he's playing alongside Ramirez. Now Ramirez, like before, you want him on both because he's got engine. He can have high work rate on both. He'll get up and down the field, and you want that mobile midfield to go alongside your Mikel, who's sitting next to you. But as you go into the front 3, now what I would do normally is have Lampard centre attacking mid, I'd have Mata on the left, and then I'd probably have Malouda or someone on the right. So the players are slightly in the wrong positions here, but you get the right idea. When I'd have someone on the left, because I've got 2 midfielders sitting behind, I can afford the players in front to be a bit more aggressive. Because you can see, I've got John Obi Mikel sitting in midfield, he's not going to move. And then I've got Ramirez alongside him, who's playing in a slightly more defensive role than he was in the formation before. So you can have him sitting there a little bit more, and that enables your front 3 to be even more aggressive. So I've taken off the defensive work rate on one winger, but left it on the other. So what you get is a nice balance between attack and defence. You've got 3 players who are completely focused on attack. You've got 1 player in midfield completely focused on defence. 1 player will do a bit of everything, and then the winger who will fill in if he needs to. So that's a really good balanced formation. The last one I'm going to quickly show you is one I actually play on Ultimate Team, which is the 4-3-2-1 formation. It is called the custom 4-3-3, but on Ultimate Team, this is called the 4-3-2-1. Now, I think I set this up properly. Yeah, here we go again. Now, as you can see, back 4 exactly the same. I leave that pretty much like that all the time, unless you're playing with a really slow, cumbersome fullback who isn't very good at getting forward. Then I would consider putting him on high defensive work rate and medium attacking work rate. But the vast majority of fullbacks in the game, especially in a 5-star team like Chelsea, are good going forward, so you want them to get up the pitch. But in the midfield, like you can see, Mikel would normally play in the middle here, so he's slightly out of position. So Mikel would play in the more defensive-minded role in the centre of the park. Ramirez would play on the right-hand side of midfield. And then I'd probably put Frank Lampard on the left-hand side of midfield, where Juan Mata is playing at the moment. So the position I have highlighted here is where Frank Lampard would play. Because Frank Lampard is a little bit older, he doesn't have the stamina and he isn't going to be bursting around. You don't want to tire him out so much. So because he's playing in a slightly more defensive role than he was in the 4-1-2-1-2, you want to have him on medium work rate, because if you have him on high work rate attacking, he will try and bomb forward a lot and it'll tire him out, and you don't want your players to be knackered, especially when you're playing online, because that really can hurt you in the last 10 minutes. So keep it fairly flexible in midfield, but up front, as per usual, I like to have players up front who are focused on just attacking. So whenever I set a formation up like this, I have low defensive work rate and high attacking work rate, because they've got so many players behind them whose job is purely defensive. You need some players up front who will be the most attacking threats in your team. So that is how I like to set up formations. I hope you found that interesting. If you want to recommend a formation to me and want me to show you how I would set that up, just in case you're struggling with a particular formation you use, don't hesitate to do that, and I'll quite happily point you out how I do that formation. But guys, once again, thank you for watching the video. I really hope you've enjoyed it. and have a great day.